So the next concept which we are going to discuss is like kind of an exception handling. Okay. So like we have came across different exceptions like no such element exception or like array index out of bound exception. Like there are n number of exceptions. So whenever such exception is thrown, if there is a solution, we need to implement the solution. Okay, so that is what we call it as an exception handling. But before handling the exception, like we need to know few difference. So what is mean by error and exception? Okay, so the error is nothing but we call it as an syntax error. Okay, so syntax error in the sense like whenever, for example, in my coding, if I remove the semicolon, so immediately what happened? So it is giving me the error in the red lines. Okay, so which means so whenever we make some errors, okay, immediately the compiler will identify it. So whatever the compiler which is detecting, right, so which we call it as an error. So basically the syntax error are detected by the compilers, and if the compilers detect the errors, then we call it as an checked exception. Okay, so generally, so the checked exceptions can be checked by the compiler. Okay, and how they will notify to us in the sense in the form of red line. Okay, it will be available in the red line. Okay, so whenever there is a syntax error, we call it as an error. So what is mean by exception? Okay, so exception is nothing but which can't be identified by the compiler. Okay, so the compiler can't identify the issue. So, okay, can't identify by the so if the compiler can't identify, then we call it as an exception. For example, I'm opening any one of the page object. So here I'm changing the locator property. Okay, so instead of this two text bars, I'm changing to ABC. So it is whether it is throwing an error. So obviously, like it won't throw the error while typing the code. But while executing the code, it may unable to find an element, like then it will throw the exception. Okay, so whenever something is unable to identify by the compiler, it is throw us in the form of an exception. So the exception is nothing but we call it as an abnormal condition. So whenever like something is not working, whenever it disturb the normal flow, so the exception will be thrown. So which we call it as an unchecked exceptions. Okay, so generally the unchecked exception cannot be identified by the compiler. So only the checked exception can be identified by the compiler. So which is what displaying in the form of red lines. But when it is of an unchecked exception, so it will throw in the form of an exceptions. Okay, so while during the design time we will able to identify the checked exception, but this unchecked exception will be captured only during the runtime. So when such exception happens, so it is a responsibility of an automation test engineer to handle the exception. And how we are going to handle the exception in the sense with the help of the try and catch block. Okay, so we are going to use the concept called as a try and catch block in Java. So it is pretty much similar to the condition, but in the condition what we have done, so we will be having the if statement, and we will be having the condition, and if the condition matches, it is going to execute the particular block, else it is going to execute the different block. But whereas in the try, initially we are going to try something. Okay, so we are not checking any condition, so we are going to try something. So while trying something, if we get any exception, we are going to check the exception in the catch block. Okay, so we are just going to verify the type of exception, and if the type of exception matches, we are going to like apply the solution for the same. Or we are capturing the exception. If the exception matches, then we need to provide the solution in the catch block. And we may get a different types of exception, right? So how we are using else if for validating the various condition. In similar way, like we can have a multiple catch block, and in each and every catch block we can type the possible exception and we can provide the solution. Okay, so now let's see. Let me just take this weight as an example. Okay, so here let me handle this in a try and catch block. So what I'm going to do, initially I'm going to like try something. Okay, I'm just using the try keyword. I'm going to try something. What I'm going to try in the sense, like I'm planning to like get the text. Okay, I'm trying to get the text. So while I'm trying to get the text, what happened? Obviously, this locator won't be available, right? Then it is going to throw the exception. But sometimes, like this text will be appearing immediately. We don't need to wait. But if there is a lot of batch process at the end, like then we need to wait. So at the first call, like before applying the wait, what I'm doing, I'm trying to get the text. If the text is available, then fine. If the text is not available, then obviously like it is going to throw the exception. What is the exception it is going to throw? It is going to throw the exception called as a no such element exception. And if such exception occurs, we are going to apply the solution in the catch block. Okay, so we are applying this solution in the catch block. Okay, so initially like we are trying something. Okay, if not, okay, let me just alter this return statement as well, because like we are providing the same line over here. So let me provide this. Okay, so when this particular catch block will execute, so when the exception matches, what is the possible exception? It's obviously no such element exception, right? So I can say like no such element exception, and we should provide some variable name for the exception. Okay, so it will try to execute this line, but if it is unable to find, obviously like it will throw the no such element exception, and it will step into the catch block because the exception is matching. So then it will wait. Okay, it will apply the wait. So it will apply the fluent wait concept. It will keep checking the element. If the element is loaded, it will perform, it will get the text, and we can use it for the validation. Because there will be many logics and application. So some field will be appearing immediately, but sometimes in some cases, like if the batch process is taking some time, then we need to apply the wait. So how we can achieve this in the sense with the help of the try and catch block. So by this way, like we are avoiding the wait as well as like we are handling the exception as well. So now we if we, at the first shot, if you are able to find the text, we can return the output, right? So I'm just creating the string. So let it be like kind of an okay text value. Okay, I'm just storing this text value over here. So text value is equal to something. Even here I'm just storing the text value, it's over to something. Okay, so why I'm storing here in the sense, because whenever it is retrieving the text, like it is going to like store the value in the variable called as a text value, and then we can return the text value. Okay, so now we have added the return statement because the return type of the method is string. So we are going to try something. So if it is working as expected, then it will skip the catch block. So how in the conditions, so if the condition is satisfied, it is skipping the else block. In similar way, if the try work perfect, then it won't consider the catch block. In case if there is an issue in the try, then it will cross check with the exception. Okay, whatever the exception we have specified. So in our case, like the possibility is like only one exception, but in a real time, like we may get two exceptions. Sometimes it will get the no such element exception, sometimes it will get another exception. So whenever we are having the multiple exception, okay, we need to capture that exception in the catch block. So for example, there is another exception. Let's say like for just a sample, I'm just mentioning this exception. So let it be like kind of an like invalid argument exception, like where some we are mentioning some exception. Okay, if that exception occurs, so then we need to like apply the solution inside this catch block. Okay, so whatever the exception it is thrown, based upon the exception, the particular catch block will execute, and we need to provide the solution in the particular catch block. Okay, now let us try to execute this code. So how it is stepping to the catch block. Let me just remove this additional catch block. Let me add the breakpoints in the catch block, as well as let me add the breakpoints in the try block. So this is like scenario of an explicit wait, right? Let me just navigate to that particular scenario. Okay, in which let me update the tag. So we need to update the tag in the feature runner, and next step is like we need to update the URL. Where we need to update the URL, under the resources in the framework.properties, we need to update the URL. So now let me just search the URL. Okay, and let me just add the URL over here. So this is the explicit wait, right? So I'm just copying the URL and I'm pasting over there. Now I'm going to run this feature file in a debugger mode. So whenever like we run in a debugger mode, so wherever we have kept the breakpoints, where the execution will be, like it will be get paused, and we can able to see so what it is happening. Okay, so now it should build the project, and then it will invoke the browser, whatever the browser we have specified, and then it will be start executing the particular scenario. So now let it get run. Okay, so now it has picked the scenario. So then it is going to invoke the browser, and then it will perform the action, like it will be clicking on the button. It will click on the button called as an change text. So now after clicking on the change text, okay, it will be stepping to the try block, but it will try to find the element, but it won't be find the element. Then obviously like what happened, so like the no such element exception will be thrown. But in this case, like as we have added the time, so as we have added the debug mode, so this particular element is loaded within this 10 seconds. So that is the reason it doesn't step into the catch block. Or else like what I do, I will simply just remove the breakpoint in the try block, so that like we can see whether it is stepping into the catch block or not. Now let me just try running. Okay, so now it should step into the catch block, because we are not providing the time, right? Because whenever we add the breakpoints in the try, so even the execution will be under our control. As the click action is performed, so it is satisfying the time. So that is the reason it worked. Okay, so which means if it is able to find, so it is doing such operation. Okay, so now let's see. So now it has done. Okay, so now after clicking it, so it will try finding the element. So if it is unable to find the element, okay, now the exception will be thrown. Okay, and it will compare the exception. What is the exception we got? We got no such element exception. And as the exception matches in this particular block, okay, so it will step into it and it will apply the weight. Okay, so this time it will apply the weight, but we have applied the fluent weight. But if you notice, it has passed immediately. So the reason is like, so even though like the maximum duration is 30 seconds, here we are using the concept called as an polling every. So it will check in the first 5 seconds. So even in the first 5 seconds itself, the element is loaded. So that is why it is avoided the additional time, and it has retrieved the text, and with the help of the assertion it has done the validations. Okay, so this is how like we need to handle the exceptions. So moving forward, like if while writing the page object, right, so if you are aware like this field may load in a different interval, so then you should try out with the try and catch block. So initially you are going to try something. Okay, while trying, if it is working as expected, then that is not that there is no issues, because you can proceed further. But if it doesn't work, obviously like it is going to throw the exception, and you need to capture the exception in the catch block. Okay, and whenever the exception matches, then it will be stepping to the particular catch block. So we can have a multiple catch block, and inside each and every catch block we will be specify the type of exception. So whenever the type of exception matches, it will be step into the particular catch block, and it will be performing the respective solution, which is nothing but it will be implementing the respective solution. So by this way, like, we can eliminate the errors, and we can have the stable automation code. So even if the exception occurs, we are handling the exception, and how we are handling the exception in the sense with the help of the try and catch block. Okay, so now whatever the changes I have did, so as I told, so all the changes will be captured in this changes tab. Okay, whatever the thing which we have added, so everything will be available over here. So here I have added the URL, I have updated the URL. If I need to ignore this URL, then I can simply discard this file. Okay, because in the real time, so this URL and the runner file, okay, will have the static data, because here we should not have our own tag. So if I use the tag called as an LMTI02, if I commit to the main branch will be committing to the CI/CD server. Then what happen? It will run only one particular test case. So we will be having some generic tags. So while discussing about the Jenkins, I will explain about this. So basically, like, you should not commit the environment, or you should not commit the feature file. So even this is a standard, this is the process they will check while reviewing. So have you altered the tag, or have you altered the environments? So we should not alter the environments, or we should not alter the tags. So I'm just discarding the file. So only for our reference, in the local we are testing, and post testing locally we should discard those file, and we should commit only the needed file. So now let me just add the commit. Let it be kind of an, okay, try and catch. And if I click on the commit to LMTI, so obviously the changes will be added only to the LMTI. So now how I can migrate my code from my branch to the main branch? So obviously, like, by creating the pull request. So how you will be creating the pull request? There is an option called as an preview pull request, or in some cases in the drop down, so it will be appearing as an create pull request. So if you click on the drop down, you could able to see the two option. So whatever it is, so you can preview and you can create, or else you can directly change to create pull request. If I click on the create pull request, it will be automatically opening, and I need to give the title. So let it be like kind of an, okay, try and catch. And if I click, I need to select the reviewer, and if I click on the create pull request, okay, so the pull request will be added. And if I navigate to the pull request tab, so the number is 3, and we have close to 2. Okay, whenever something is merged, it will be amended in the close tab. So now the reviewer will review, and if they will navigate to the file changes, and if they are okay with it, then they will be approving. And post approving, so what they used to do, so they used to, like, merge the pull request. If I just click on the confirm merge, like, it will, the code will be added to the main branch. Now if I just navigate to the main branch, right, so what is the repository, so which we have created? Let me just navigate to the respective repository. Okay, so now in this repository, initially it is pointing to the main branch. And if you see, like, what is the latest commit we have done, if I click on the commit number, so whatever the changes we have done, it will be displaying those changes, which is nothing but this is the new code which is added to the main branch. Okay, so basically with the help of the commit ID, we can able to review. And as of now, we have done 15 commits. If I click on the 15 commits, like, whoever has done the commit, so everything will be displaying over here. Okay, so whoever has done the commit, so everything will be displaying over the here. And even we can revert the commit straight away from here. Okay, for example, if I need to revert this commit, yes, I can revert the commit as well. So just I can go to the commit ID, and there is an option to revert the commit. I'm not sure where it would be. So basically, like, even inside this GitHub also we can able to revert the command. Okay, but for the simple process, it always good to use the GitHub desktop. So the GitHub desktop is authorized in all the project, so for sure, like, you can use it up. But in olden days they will be using some git commands. Now we can avoid the git commands with this latest tool called as an GitHub desktop. So by this way we can make the commit process very easily, and we can easily create the pull request, and as well as like we can easily review our coding. So that is the reason like I'm using the GitHub desktop. Okay.